So thanks for having me this evening. Thanks for everything the Young Democrats of Georgia have done for me in the past as well. As a first-time candidate back in 2016, y'all came and canvassed for me when most folks didn't think I had a shot in winning. Y'all helped turn out the vote in my race, like y'all will do across the state of Georgia, and for that, I'm eternally grateful. Because without y'all, I would not have been able to have the opportunity to make history. That first election taught me firsthand that democracy works. And as imperfect as our democracy has been, it has allowed us to make progress and overcome all the many challenges that we faced. And I believe I don't have to remind any of y'all that elections have consequences. We see the negative implications of that truth every day with the madman, the liar in chief, sitting in our White House today, pitting Americans against each other for her selfish ambition, sitting back and doing nothing while our country literally burns on the West Coast. 7 million Americans infected, more than 200,000 dead. This is unprecedented. But I have hope, knowing that we, the people, you and me, have the power to put all this chaos and madness to an end in 27 days on November 3rd. Now, I wanted to go in a bit in depth in terms of the stakes of this election, focused on Georgia and state politics. We're fighting for the next decade of Georgia politics, to be as crystal clear as I can. We're working to strengthen our democracy by expanding the electorate and empowering the new American majority that demands change, which we have the power to bring about. And it's so needed. Let's look back over the past decade of Republican control. First, they gerrymandered the maps in 2011 to try and build a supermajority that would have unilaterally allowed them to amend our state constitution. But thanks to the leadership of Stacey Abrams, those plans were thwarted. Out of 180 seats in the Georgia House, they drew 56 seats. One step at a time, we fought back. I believe I was the 64th Democrat elected in 2016, meaning Republicans had a 3-to-1 majority. 2 years later, we elected 11 new Democrats and had 75 seats. And this November, I believe we can change the political foundation in this state by building and empowering a new Democratic majority. Now, over the past decade with a Republican-dominated legislature, what did they do with their power? Well, in 2012, they passed HB 87 that tore immigrant families apart. In 2014, they blocked access to healthcare for more than 500,000 Georgians by refusing to expand Medicaid in this state, good public policy, which 37 other states have passed. We now have the second highest uninsured rate in the country, the highest maternal mortality rate in the nation, which means Georgia is the most dangerous state for a woman to have a child in this country, and an HIV/AIDS epidemic that's comparable to third world countries. All of this in the middle of a pandemic due to the failures in Republican leadership and those currently in charge. In 2016, they passed legislation, religious liberty legislation, that would have permitted state-sanctioned discrimination against the LGBTQ community. This bill was so harmful and so extreme that a Republican governor had to ultimately veto it. The very next year, they went right back at it and allowed guns on college campuses. 2 years later, just last year in 2019, they passed legislation and Governor Kemp signed into law a bill to criminalize a woman's right to determine when to start a family. A federal judge, I think a month or two ago, struck down this law as unconstitutional. That very same year, just last year, they passed legislation to protect Confederate monuments and the legacy of white supremacy in our state. Just a few months ago, they passed a flat tax in the Georgia House. Thankfully, it didn't make it all the way across the finish line. But they passed a flat tax, which would have been a massive tax cut for the rich, right before we saw unprecedented unemployment in this state. 88% of a $458 million tax cut would have gone to those making $108,000 or more. And of course, they cut nearly $1 billion from our public schools, which more likely than not, they will continue to cut as we move forward, so long as Republicans are in charge of our state legislature. With a Democratic majority that represents the people, there is so much good we can accomplish for all Georgians. We can build a healthier, stronger Georgia by making sure every Georgian has access to healthcare, by passing common sense gun safety reforms that have a majority of support in this state and in this country. That would help reduce gun violence and keep our communities safe. And of course, we can address climate change, an existential threat that affects all of us. With a new Democratic majority, we can protect the American dream for the next generation by protecting our democracy, by making sure every vote counts, and removing barriers placed by Republicans to suppress the vote. We can invest in working families, work to provide affordable housing, and of course, we can invest in the generation, in the education of the next generation, from pre-K to college, to ensure that the next generation has every opportunity to thrive. And of course, with a new Democratic majority, we can and we will continue the march for justice and fulfill the promise of this nation by ensuring liberty and justice for all Georgians, and work towards social justice, racial justice, reproductive justice, and criminal justice. We can do all of this. Can I get an amen? Anyways, over these next 27 days, I know things are going to be very challenging and things are going to get intense. The rhetoric is going to get nasty, but in the midst of the fray, I want to urge each and every one of y'all to stay calm, be cool, and go all in. The march for justice and progress started before any of us were born, and young people, you and me, we have always led the way from the very beginning, demanding America fulfill its founding promises. One step at a time, by the blood, sweat, and tears of others who paved the way for us, we have made progress. Now, in the face of unprecedented challenges, it is our turn. Now is the time for us to rise up. Now is the time for the next generation to rise up. In the words of John Lewis, ordinary people with extraordinary vision can redeem the soul of America by getting into good trouble, necessary trouble. Voting and participating in the democratic process are key. The vote is the most powerful, nonviolent change agent we have in a democratic society, and we must use it. So don't believe the lies. Don't believe those who say the system is rigged, my vote doesn't matter, politicians are all the same, I have no power. That's all nonsense. The truth is that you and me, we have the power to bring about the change you want to see, the change that you demand, the change that we so desperately need. So grab everyone you know, use the power you have, make a plan to vote, and vote, vote, vote. Let's finish strong, let's get it done, and let's bring hope back to America. Thanks so much.